Well, for those of you who have been attendees of these conferences, you will recognize how fortunate we are to have Carol Parrish with us again. She, for so many years, has been one of those great lights for this kind of teaching and relating different aspects of, you might say, the mysteries to it. She's been 40 years an ordained minister, and mentioned to me this morning, I didn't know this, but she got her start through a near-death experience. So some of these experiences do awaken us to our deeper nature. She started a Sparrowhawk Village, which is an intentional community back in, I think, roughly 1981 in Oklahoma, and has been a major part of her life, and recently retired as academic dean of Sancta Sophia. Now recently, so what does one do once one, in a sense, retires? There's a word that she has in here, I could barely pronounce it, but it's autocephalocopus or something like that, bishop. But I asked her what it meant. It's a free roaming bishop, which is marvelous, as part of the Free Catholic movement for the third millennium. For those of you who know Leadbeater's work and others who have seen themselves as part of the Catholic Church, but not the Roman Catholic Church. Like Carol mentioned, there's a number of different groups that are part of this. So this is a major part of her service now. She has a sancta, what she calls it a temple of Christ Sophia that she does a lot of her work in. She's also a major exponent of the divine feminine in her work. There are 6 books of hers in a bookstore. We have the book on the rituals, which is terrific, but three-part books on mysteries of initiation?
Meditation.
Meditation, yeah, boy. So it's fairly awesome, and she will be signing books later on this afternoon. So we welcome you, Carol. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got to see my time so I can keep up with it. All right, I want to tell you first that I really am glad to be with you. I've always loved being here. I've always learned from everybody. I've always rejoiced in sharing. So it's fun for me to be here. But I also want to talk about my topic, of course, as we move from 6th ray to 7th ray. I want to begin by a little story that I heard, and I always think about it when I go out west. There was a lady named Sally who was driving home one night, and she was on a long, quiet stretch, and she saw a Navajo lady on the side of the road walking along. She stopped, since the trip was long, and invited her to ride with her. The native lady got in the car with her and noticed that there on the side of the seat beside the driver was a brown paper bag with a bottle in it. So she looked over and she said, "What's in the bag?" The lady said, "It's a bottle of wine. I got it for my husband." The elderly lady sat there rather quiet for a moment and then with great wisdom said, "Good trade." So I'm a bit of a feminist, you might think. Likewise, as there's change happening now, we are having a new influence, Ray 7, strengthening itself, coming to enrich us. We're making a major switch, and I know that chaos has been making itself felt everywhere. The prophecies of the ending age have come and gone, and they're noticed by many but understood only by a few. There's a little European prophecy that I want to share with you. In hindsight, it speaks loud and very clear about our last 20 years. In the corner of a little town churchyard in a Basque coastal town in Spain sits a battered, neglected, 300-year-old cross, a monument to the end of time. The faded Greek cross bears Latin inscriptions that are said to reveal the end point of time. The symbolism of the cross reveals a series of destruction from summer solstice to winter solstice over a 20-year period, 1992 to 2012. The midpoint, the fall equinox of 2002, is where the planetary and solar alignments form a right-angled cross between our system's regular angular momentum and the galactic center. The midpoint of this destructive period foretold by the cross falls on September 22 to 2002. It is bracketed by celestial events. On the winter solstice, the end point, the sun, is conjunct the galactic center, and the moon will be in opposition. This is what happened December 21, 2012, that we all talked about. Thus, those solar alignments revealed on the monument act as bookends to our midpoint of September 2002, defining a 20-year period of destruction in breaking down structure and form all around the world. Now, I've never, until recently, a couple of 3 years ago, I put that in my Mayan book, I never had heard of people talking about a Latin cross that said that same date. And I wanted to present the fact that it was a 20-year period that was so hard for us in this country. All of our financial disarmament was going on during that period of time. But the Mayan prophecies speak about a future time, a time that their wise ones glimpsed from long ago, and toward a future that humanity must solidify into one healthy whole. We now are glimpsing the same thing as we start talking about a better time, an age of Aquarius, as we're moving into this. I have been doing some thinking about, since Capricorn represents initiation, that we will probably be working on the age of Aquarius for the masses all during this next age. And the real oneness will manifest at the very last of the Aquarian age, and where Capricorn and Aquarius touch. I think we should think about that some, because that's our work for this next age. Since Pluto also is making a transit through Capricorn, it is being conjunct the sun on the 2012 solstice. Pluto symbolically, according to the Mayans, sets the pattern for the approaching 26,000-year cycle, one of drastic regeneration, transformation, and ultimately initiation. So I'd like to put that in. That's about all I'm going to say about astrology as such, but this present period is about the higher consciousness being humanity's goal, and that each of us have a part of that. And that goal we keep talking about is when the one human will stand revealed. I traveled the Mayan lands a great deal when I was able to, and one of the things most interesting about the pyramids is you go up all these steps and then you arrive at a little tiny temple room up on top. All of humanity's going up all those steps, but the one human will step into the temple room. That's the united oneness that we seek. Now imagine that we are walking on the beach and the spent wave is pulling back out and the next strong wave has not yet arrived. This is where we are. We are caught in the undertow, as any Florida beach goer would say. And it's hard to stay upright when that force is pulling at you. The sixth ray has saturated us with devotion, dedication to all kind of areas: work, play, home, family, church, country, all. We need to see its contributions and also its abuses. From our perspective, sometimes we are likely to speak of Race 6 with some disdainment. Remember that before Race 6 came in, there were great exacting rules, rights or wrongs, cruelty was acceptable, old taboos, labels of clean and unclean were common. Cutting off of hands or body parts was an acceptable means of punishment. The use and harshness of these punishments died slowly as the incoming Race 6 energy moved humanity into more compassion and caring. Now we've lived to see Race 6 make its contribution to the human consciousness, especially in the areas of religion and culture. Its abuses are now becoming known, and again the energy is fixing to change. For the earlier part of Race 6, cruelty was accepted without too much notice. The rejects of society were fair game, and cover-up was easy. Things began to change. People got religion, they got compassion, they began to be more devoted. As we think today about the distortion of Race 6, we might ponder religious abuse, disregard for women and children, disregard of nature, as animal abuse. Law in holy books has been argumentative, and many abuses. I think about Deuteronomy. I always think of all the bad rules that are in there for us. But all of humanity swims in the Piscean astral sea of glamour, if we'd call it that. It is simply a matter of how much we absorb or reject that makes us differ from one another. But we're all in the same place. The religions of the world think they're superior, and if we listen, we will be subservient to them. We have to find our inner judgment. Equally as guilty is the field of politics. We find politicians so devoted to their party line that ethics seem not to matter. It's even been said that politics is the religion of our particular time. What about the thousands of dollars that's been raised by emotional ads and pictures of struggling people, veterans, children, asking for donations? Worthy causes, all of them. But it's sad to see these funds end up in the pockets of shady organizations or individuals. Many of them are saying that 90% of the funds raised go to management. Prejudices and distortion have become so rampant in both religion and politics that we have trouble, and we have to make laws about every little detail because we're an over-fervent public. Every day we hear gun control arguments about freedom to own guns arouses such emotionalism, the argument matters more than common sense. We have forgotten that love fulfills the law. Religion has caused many to feel superior rather than recognizing that it is the understanding of a living spirituality. Actually, some of us, I should say, are beginning to free ourselves by stating a belief in spirituality rather than a particular religion or denomination. We must remember that Race 6 brought about a focus upon all areas that are very heart-centered for us, our family, our job, so forth. But today we rarely see a 50-year marriage. We can all remember when employees used to get a gold watch for 50 years. No one's staying at one place that long. It's very hard to do that in our time because we live in an era of over-exaggerated emotion. We have witnessed abuse, by overcharged emotional nature. Our group consciousness is guided by excessive emotions rather than wisdom. Think about individuals being pulled by emotional strings rather than good judgment. How often do we hear the saying, against my better judgment? We've said that ourselves. I'm going to do it, but against my better judgment. Parents particularly undergo a tug of emotional manipulation almost daily, giving into the emotions rather than taking a stance by better judgment. This is that strong race 6 devoted to being a good parent rather than being a bad guy. The new era stands for hoped-for vision. As the old departs, leaving its impact with us, we must realize that we are readying ourselves to integrate dedication with a new energy of transformation to come forth ultimately to build a civilization that operates in a new way. Continuous striving marks the disciple. Humanity's current challenge is to use wisely the contribution of the closing era. Therefore, our first work is to appreciate the contribution Race 6 has made to our world and to human beings. The destructive energy of the ray has now come into action. Last night, when I was watching those terms and words that our leaders were speaking, how forceful that Mars energy is and how it's expressing itself. Now we have to look at the incoming Ray 7 as it delivers a more subtle vibration and of a higher nature. We are approaching all areas of life with a more mental and scientific grasp of life itself. We're building a closer relationship with the world of nature, and this includes the Davidic kingdom. I believe humanity longs for this connection and truly wants to interact with other life forms that also call Earth home, angels and invisible beings. This connection is more possible with increased sensitivity and respect. The same can be said about meta-terrestrial connections. We're on the very edge of a reality to rediscover our part in the web of life, and it is far more vast than we imagine. We should know that this is part of this door that is opening as we cultivate a higher use of mind. The intuitive and scientific energy change will help us on our quest to become the long-awaited wise ones. We're developing a more thoughtful and sensitive way of being. Along with improving our organizational skills and grasping a more natural relationship with one another, we will gain an innate understanding of spirituality and natural laws at work. A higher consciousness leads us in that process. The mystic of the heart is being transformed into the sage. Thinking of this term, I think about the new Pope Francis. He is a wonderful example of holiness, a mystic with his attention directed to the poor and social concerns. He is a Jesuit, which means he has a bright mind, yet he has readily showed the importance that he places upon relationships when, prior to blessing the people gathered in the square, he asked them to pray for him. These qualities clearly demonstrate that Pope Francis has a strong seventh ray in his makeup. His quiet humility is another seventh ray mannerism. He certainly brings a new and different presence to the scene. By choosing the name Francis, he is letting the world know he's going to rebuild or rock the church. He's a modern sage. He seems ready to address the outrageous materialism of the church and of the people. Now, I prefer the term sage to the word occultist because it has collected so much negativity. Working with the public, I think sage is a good word to use. I highly respect the term inner knower. I think it's a safe term almost any place it's used. We can each grow and love the term sage or wise one. In it, we recognize the value of both our heart and our mind. We've all heard the mind is the slayer of the real, as we have studied. The lower mind does disregard the unknown as frivolous, but the higher mind ventures far beyond the intellect to find rich food. We must remember that in every group there are people of different levels, different personality rays. Some are ready for higher consciousness, some are not. While a great love of law and order, system, organizations, and everything becoming perfect exists with Ray 7, we must realize that perfect can become perfectionism, and it can present us even more difficulties. While we desire relief from gender struggles, sexual abuse, wicked materialism, and lower psychism, all of which have grown under the Piscean influence, as well as an abundance of addictions, and I thank you for mentioning that this morning. We have people in our family struggling with addiction, and we all are learning as we go. But we are going to be moving into a more fixed arena. I hope we will continue to be fluid with our intuitional energy. We need this flexibility as we go into a future that too easily can become fixed. As we see more of the developing intuitive mind, we will find ourselves integrating the sensitive and the scientist in the manner of the physicist and the philosopher. Sensitives will provide additional helpful influences as well as their new awareness. Counselors and teachers who already use well their intuitive awareness will lead us in the use of this new level of mind with its ability to respond to the inner knower where there is less emotional pull. We will have a more calming effect emerge. We will see it change in the affairs of societies, nations, and humanity worldwide. Ray 7 seeks to assist the wise one within each of us as it struggles to take center stage. We are to invoke this aspect of ourself even as we struggle with the chaos and emotionalism of major ray changes. Torquemada Saradarian specifically says of these challenges that they are the results of human stupidity. Therefore, it's humanity's karma. And he is quick to say, don't blame it on dark forces, because that's a cop-out. Now, support for inner wisdom is on its way. As these difficulties currently challenge us, responses will gradually become more thoughtful and better organized. The term ceremonial magic will become better understood as we will come to recognize it's a wiser way of reaching desired results. The esoteric term found to be most acceptable at this time is probably mystic occultist. Here, ceremony and ritual become tools for manifestation, transformation, through a step-by-step methodology toward a desired end. We already see an increased emphasis on persons studying or teaching laws of manifestation as we are beginning to move toward a new world. The exacting skill of Ray 7 will introduce formula-like techniques toward defined goals, group work will become more harmonious. Of course, we will always have some personal Race 6 guiding and undergirding persons with a special focus ability. Many have achieved the ability to maintain a powerful focus under the direction of Race 6. Our friend Sally Brown always said the best manifestors are those with a combination of 6 and 7. Those who can use their combination of 6 and 7 wisely will have natural tools to help them reach their goals. Race 7 does not create sensation in the same way that Race 6 does. It lives more quietly without as much public acclaim. Emotionalism and fanaticism, and that's what happens. When we have too much Race 6, we become a fanatic. We have to look at our modern religions, their emphasis on proselytizing, upon the fervency of both six-ray Christians and Islamic faiths. Six-ray nations and religions are gradually being affected by more mental energy, and they will become either more open to one another, to others, or bitter. They will either demonstrate the last stands of fanaticism or begin to become a part of the world family of religions. It's not easy for six-ray nations to do this, or even six-ray religions. But I think about the ones that are merging into metaphysical study or having spiritual science groups. A more ecumenical way of living is becoming possible. We can see that in our society. Race 7 influence is diluting some of that irrational fervor into thinking awareness. Note, however, the warning regarding bitterness, for it raises a risk for all humanity. Bitterness. Feuds arise out of devotional energy not transforming. Persons of rigidity risk contributing to future difficulties in the style of Israel and Palestine as devotion turns to hatred, fervor turns to violence, and fear paralyzes groups into deadly enemies. This is the foundation of age-old hatreds and karmic ties of a negative source. As our world transits from an abundance of astral energy into a more mindful approach, some may miss meditations of joy and bliss and color, but gradually seed thought and the use of higher mind is going to take over. Intuition, with its clarity, will bring the devotional heart under control of higher mind, and we will be able to achieve the heart in the mind, so mentioned last night, and the mind in the heart. Goals humanity has held for centuries. Humanity must envelop, embrace, emphasize forgiveness and fair solutions to nations now caught in struggles such as the Mid-Eastern conflicts. As we transit age to age, Race 7 will bring more objectivity to these situations, new ways to enter negotiations less passionately, seeking right relationship between nations. Remember, Race 6 has served humanity well, helping us to develop the ability to focus amid conflicting pulls. This ray has assisted us to learn how to focus in many areas, and much has been achieved. We use well the strength of the emotional nature, but now we have to carry that strong focus ability toward progress in the mental arena. A powerful comment is found in the letters of Helena Roerich, entitled Unwise Giving. We should pay attention to her, especially women. This is one of those remarks that I have really done a lot with. Someone remarks, The karma of women is well deserved. To which Helena Roerich replies, "It is hard to say that the humiliation of woman is merited by her. For ages when woman was unable to express herself, only when higher psychic energy reveals itself once again in humanity did the feminine principle demand legitimate rights. The equilibrium of the elements is the foundation of life, and the violation of this law leads to destruction. Now the great teachers will affirm the rights of women. Therefore, the coming age is the age of women. Women will have to be armed with courage, and first of all, she will have to restrain her heart from unwise giving, for there must be a golden balance in everything." As generous and humanitarian people as most spiritual students really are, we must learn to restrain our heart and retrain ourselves to be wise in our giving. We must learn to make evaluations rather than let people emotionally manipulate us into giving what is out of balance. This type of a change calls for the concept we've all heard. It's not about giving a person a fish, we must train them to fish. Giving and receiving respectfully and in balance is truly the goal. We must establish an age assisting us to rediscover a regard for the polarities in each of us. Thus, we are coming to an age where we are to create a state of being as near in balance as possible. As our world transits into greater spiritual awareness and more appropriate regard for others, sharing, caring, bartering, new means of exchange will all work to restore a longing for that golden balance. We are to understand this applies to both masculine and feminine energies and all types of relationships on various other planes as well. Hopefully we have learned it's not wise nor fair for either polarity to overpower the other. We once again strive for androgyny as the great goal long held before us. Of course, we may not make it any time soon, but that's no reason not to hold it as a goal. Vera Stanley Alder says to us, "To be fundamentally a free, awakened one, bathed in the glory of God consciousness, such is the hidden goal. Such achievement is the birthright of the real you, that spark of soul embedded in matter, which is each of us. The teachings are that God, the Creator, divided himself into male, spirit, and female matter, so that these two could fuse the results in such a marriage of consciousness, the Son we call Christ. That which takes place within the head of the human is certainly a minute image of the Creator. Man's ultimate achievement is to bear a spirit son within his hermaphrodite brain, and thus join the ranks of the spirit world while still in bodily form. But in this time of the urgent, inquiring mind," she continues, "the need for realization is acute. Let us pause for a moment and think what it means for the two head centers, the pineal, the male, and the pituitary, the female, mate and marry within our own being. We will realize a God consciousness that escapes our usual reality. A world that is so extremely out of balance as ours is now being offered an opportunity to come into a new balance as the feminine, the pituitary, is energized as the pineal, male, has been in these last centuries. This is what truly makes the incoming feminine energy so important. And as it is recognized as of such value, all nature, women, sensitivity, creativity will become of greater worth in the eyes of humanity as time passes. As the seventh ray continues to make itself felt, it provides us with new tools with which to make new opportunities, new societies, a new world. As this energy comes into stronger play, we are to become more efficient, better organized, more law-abiding, as we grasp our own self-worth. With an appreciation of nature, body, and step-by-step procedures, we will better grasp the game of life with all of its hidden traditions, as well as patterns of culture, and we will give a renewed value to rites of passage that are sorely needed. All of these earn extra respect as we throw off the old emotional patterns and embrace new levels of understanding. We begin to focus on the illustration of a bridge connecting the two ages together. We envision two uprights upon which our bridge is being built. Imagine one end of the bridge standing in water, the emotional astral plane, requiring deep pilings to stabilize, mostly from the ancient past. These pilings stand on the traditions that have guided us through the psyche of each human. These pilings on this side represent Ray 6, but another piling is being built on a higher bluff. This upright stands on a more firm foundation, a less soggy soil. This represents Ray 7, the progressive, intuitive nature. These uprights stabilize all creation. Construction is occurring as new light and insights provide the why and the how. Each facet is to be formed. The blueprint of human potential etches in other factors. We are to emerge as a more wise kind of being with less dependency on ways of old. We will stimulate our creativity by looking at the needs of society and human potential through new lens. We will find ourselves exploring new worlds, both inward and outward. We're at the edge of new breakthroughs as we discover how to produce new body parts, how to heal through energy work, set goals for living longer and healthier with exciting achievements through stem cell potentials. We will achieve more harmonious personalities by applying to ourself the self-study and psychological guidelines we are learning. We are entering the age of conscious vibrational reality. We're already hearing the term vibrational medicine. It will depend on each of us how much we can perceive and embrace the new era. The new reality is being constructed out of the very vibrations we are now contacting. We are synthesizing these energies daily. Because it is subtle and moving slowly, we don't always understand that. As awakened ones, we challenge the personality and the culture to cease holding us hostage as we invoke the soul to guide us heavenward. Most of us travel out of body and into inner schools. Some remember it, some don't. But we are learning from physics the reality of inner life, the broken relationship between science and religion is being repaired. We call this spirituality transpersonal work. We're learning more about the life of the soul. No longer are we mere inhabitants of the dense world, but we are becoming builders on other planets, aware of the ceaseless power of mind evolving under the auspices of teachers, masters, and others without a lot of public recognition. We are reaching into the cosmos. We are joining a long line of prototype beings. Jesus, Buddha, Isis, Sophia. Humanity is becoming increasingly aware of ourselves as divine beings with only the limitations that we permit. As our new mental room expands, we are no longer locked into limitation. Higher mind sets us free to become the living potential. Christians call it the Christ. Others know this Holy One by other names, but it is a prototype of what each of us are to become. With the new vibrations stimulating the mind, we will construct this mind in the heart and the heart in the mind. The truth is, we are advancing in a relationship with the inner knower called by any name. We are discovering the deeper meaning of the word love, called lots of vital energy that create the facets of the one of which we are all parts. I want to say something about the word love because we use it thousands of times every day. Love is the evolutionary energy. That is the simplest thing to learn. It is what pushes us forward. It moves us. And as we are talking about becoming this one human being, this law, love fulfills the law. We are told all the time to love one another. I want you to start to think about love and each of us as a facet. We are each a facet of the one. Love is the glue that starts assembling the one human being. It isn't one kind of love. It's a multitude of kinds of love. And it is trying to bring us into right relationship. And if we'll come back when we hear the word love and think about it as glue, I think that will be helpful in our becoming that oneness that we all seek. Go back now to the construction of the bridge. We have set the uprights. We place the trusses as we do our daily prayers and meditations. The ethics we employ in our daily life add the headers for stability. The foundation and the pavement of our future will be laid by our daily practices. How well we walk on our personal bridge depends on our ability to focus and walk the talk as we cross the bridge into the new era. It is a pleasure to notice that in the last 100 years, as we are entering this important time, major teachings have been brought by the labor of three great women, H.B. Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, and Elena Rorick. They have delivered the teachings of the hierarchy to you and to me. Thank you. It is my pleasure.